Ben Shotgun here, I'm glad that you are here. I just wanted to give you some infos about the new Goblin Gang, and I just played the Goblin Gang against all the cards in the game, and there were a couple of surprises early on. I mean, of course, there are some things we definitely know, that the Goblin Gang will take down skeletons, that they will take down or at least survive the Ice Spirit. But for example, the Fire Spirit already is able to take this entire Goblin Gang down. Just 2 elixir versus 3 elixir. Other cards that also cost 3 elixir, like the Knight for example, don't do that well against the Goblin Gang. Archers aren't performing that well against these goblins either. I mean, a couple of goblins will survive this archer attack. It is pretty obvious that these goblins behave really well against troops or also buildings who just shoot at a certain rate or at a low rate. For example, the cannon. They will easily overwhelm a cannon, for example. Or of course, they will definitely overwhelm a Mega Minion, even though the Mega Minion will one-shot each goblin. I mean, it's pretty obvious, but if you send a Goblin Gang against a Goblin Gang on the same level, they will both just take each other out. It is fairly interesting what will happen when you face a skeleton army with a Goblin Gang. Because the skeleton army and the Goblin Gang are kinda similar. I mean, of course, the skeletons are not able to target air units, but the skeleton army will actually overwhelm the Goblin Gang. Bomber versus Goblin Gang, I mean, the Bomber was super surprised to see that the Bomber will just one-shot them. This might be because the Goblin Gang is bunched up when they are crossing the bridge, but still I was pretty surprised that the Bomber is just one-shotting them like this. And this might be the niche where the Goblin Gang might be super good. I mean, the skeletons could be used in that manner as well, the skeleton army, but the Goblin Gang is really good at countering the Battle Ram and also really good at taking down a Hog Rider. Another surprise for me is that they are also making such a quick progress against Skeleton Guards. Skeleton Guards don't stand a chance against the Goblin Gang, even though both of them cost 3 elixir. Of course, I mean, the big weakness of these goblins is that they are super vulnerable against splash damage of any sort. Valkyrie, Ice Wizard, Dog Prince, Wizard, all these units will just cream these gobs. Even though, for example, the Mini P.E.K.K.A. and also the Lumberjack are one-shotting goblins, they are pretty bad against the Goblin Gang. But a surprise for me is that the Musketeer is behaving so well against these goblins. Unless of course the Goblin Gang is spawned around her and these Knife Goblins are already able to stab her early on. The Knife Goblins and also the Spear Goblins, they have a really high damage to elixir ratio, and especially because they cost 3 elixir and not 4 elixir, they're pretty quick at taking down buildings. I mean, you would never have a Tesla, or not never, but you would rarely see Teslas or spawners or Inferno Towers spawn directly where the bridge is, and these goblins have a high damage, and of course Inferno Towers, they take so much time to burn a single goblin down. It's a different story with bomb towers, but also for the Tesla, the Goblin Gang will overwhelm all of them. I mean, goblins against mortar, it's pretty obvious that the Spear Goblins will just be hit by one of these mortar shells and yeah, they will just die. Now we are in the region where the troops are way more expensive, 5 elixir versus 3 elixir, but there are some units that really do well against goblins. For example, the Bowler will just one-shot all of them with one single bowling ball, and so will the Executioner, of course. I mean, Barbarians are already struggling a little against the Goblin Gang, but this is the same effect as with the Skeleton Army. Prince will be totally overwhelmed by the Goblin Gang, even though if he's not targeted by the opponent's archer, he might take them all down, but he will not even make it to the tower. I was super excited to see how the Goblin Gang will do against the Graveyard. And if you spawn a Graveyard, and even though these goblins are just in the middle, even the Spear Gobs, they hardly take any damage from the skeletons and are just taking care of all of them. Super quick with the spears with some range, super great counter against graveyards. And that for 2 less drops of elixir. Nah, P.E.K.K.A. against the Goblin Gang. P.E.K.K.A. takes so much time to take single units down. It would take the P.E.K.K.A. much longer to chop through a skeleton army, but it's still a valid counter. Elite Barbarians, you would be better off with a skeleton army. These elite Barbarians will just chop through, since there are 2 of them and they are hitting fairly quickly. They will just chop through the Goblin Gang. You would be better off defending this with a skeleton army. How will the Sparky do against goblins? I mean, this placement is not perfect. If the Sparky is in your half and you spawn the Goblin gang just around the Sparky, they should be able to take the Sparky down. But not if the Goblin gang is just walking towards the Sparky and the Sparky is already in charge. And as we know, the Golem explosion will take care of goblins. And in this case, the Golem is just smashing them all with his explosion. Of course, if the goblins are scattered around a little, they might not affect the spear gobs, for example, but these knife goblins are definitely gone. And as the Musketeer on her own performed really well against the goblins, the Goblin gang can do nothing about the 3 Musketeer card. That's it for now. Let me know what you think about the Goblin gang. Thanks for watching, guys, and I hope that I will see you next time.